네, 여러분 진심으로 반갑습니다.
Pleasure to meet you. We are here at the International Conference on Middle Market Enterprises Innovation 2020. My name is Bunsori. I will be leading you throughout the conference. Thank you very much for your participation at the conference despite your busy schedules and despite COVID-19. We would now like to commence our international conference. We have many participants online as well. Thank you very much for your participation. As you're well aware, the subtitle for this conference is Reorganization of the Global Materials, Parts, and Equipment Supply Chain and the Response Strategies of Korean Middle Market Enterprises. We look forward to sharing international cooperation models and case studies in order to preemptively respond to the reorganization of the global supply chain. We look forward to the sharing of your precious opinions. We have part 1 and part 2 prepared. For part 1, we have the opening ceremony, lecture, and discussion. For part 2, we will have an introduction of the best practices for global capacity enhancement. We have conducted disease control measures for COVID-19 at this event. We look forward to your cooperation so that we can have a safe conference by keeping on our masks at all times. We will also ask the speakers to speak with their masks on. As we have mentioned before, we are live streaming our conference on MME 2020, our YouTube channel, in both Korean and English. If you have any questions or any comments that you would like to share with us, please share those comments and questions via the mail address that you see here on the screen, and we will deliver your comments and questions to our speakers. Let us now commence the International Conference on Middle Market Enterprise Innovation 2020. First, we would like to invite the President of Korean Institute for Advancement of Technology, Mr. Seok Young-chul, for his opening remarks. Please welcome President Seok with a big round of applause.
어서 오십시오.
Welcome. Good afternoon. I am the president of KIAT, Seok Young-chul. Due to COVID-19, we are encountering a lot of difficulty in our daily lives, but still we see that many are participating in this international conference on MME's Innovation 2020. So I'd like to begin by welcoming and thanking all of the participants and viewers of our program. I'd like to acknowledge and thank Deputy Minister Park Ki-young of Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, and NRW Minister of Economic Affairs, Andreas Pinkwart, who will send his congratulatory remarks through video, and Director Kim Jae-sung of Caleb and Company, and our keynote special lecturer, head of German-Korean Center for Tech Cooperation, Johannes Pietzka. Thank you very much. And in session 2, for case presentations, we have many CEOs in attendance, so thank you as well. We are having the 4th MME's Innovation Conference this year. And this is a conference where MMEs, the economic growth entities in our country, participate to discuss corporate growth and industry development. Reflecting the fast changes in the global economic situation, this year we have selected as our theme Materials, Components, and Equipment GVC Reorganization and MME's Response Strategy. And KIAT is representing the efforts to foster MMEs in Korea, and RWTH Aachen University of Germany has a lot of startups, and there will be a MOU signing for global cooperation in technology, business exchanges, and networking. And we look forward to a meaningful time at this conference to find solutions for preemptively responding to the crisis situation and to broaden global perspectives for our MMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, the recent global economy has been faced with many challenges: nationalism, spread of COVID-19, Japan's export restrictions, and trade protectionism, which threatens GVC. And so we are in a very difficult situation. Particularly for Korea, we have a high reliance on GVC. And so, to stably grow our economy, the role of MMEs, the pillar of our economy, would be most important. Germany fostered their Mittelstand and used the Mittelstand as the backbone of their economy and became a manufacturing powerhouse in the global economy. And similarly, for Korean economy to have long-term growth, the manufacturing MMEs, the MMEs will have to play pivotal role in strengthening manufacturing capabilities. Our MMEs are the core business group producing the materials, components, and equipments necessary to strengthen new businesses and develop new industries. And among the 1,053 manufacturing MMEs, 86%, which is 902 companies, are MCE companies, and they are the suppliers of our major companies in the value chain, and they play an important role as demand sources for SMEs. So they are the backbone of our economy. And to change the crisis into an opportunity, the MMEs, which plays this pivotal role, will have to respond flexibly to changes in the GVC. And Kiat has been developing various policies and identifying projects in order to help MMEs grow and strengthen their competitiveness. And we have also exerted efforts to foster global MMEs and form industrial ecosystems and to provide more support. And we will listen to the voice from the field more, and we'll do our best to assist the innovative growth and strengthening of competitiveness of our MMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to this conference being an opportunity for MMEs to develop competitive advantage-based survival strategies amidst the GVC reorganization. Again, thank you very much for your participation, for your interest, and the MMEs, which are the rising driving force of our economy. I wish all of you continuous challenge and great success. Thank you.
네, 서경철 한
Thank you very much, President Suk, for your remarks. As he has mentioned, MMEs are indeed the pillar of the Korean economy, and we look forward to recognize them for their importance. At this international conference, we are commemorating the middle market enterprises, or MMEs. Thank you very much to President Suk for hosting this great gathering. We also have with us the Deputy Minister for Trade, Mr. Park Gi-young of the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy. Please welcome him for his welcoming address. Good afternoon. As have been introduced, I am Park Gi-young, Deputy Director for Trade at MOTI. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the distinguished guests from home and abroad and members of MMEs for your participation at the International Conference on MME Innovation 2020. Thank you to President Seok-Yong-chul and his staff at the Korea Institute for Advancement of Technology for the preparations. Thank you to President Rüli Rütiger of Aachen University and Mr. Johannes Pitzka, the head of the German-Korean Center for Technology Cooperation, as well as their staff, for participating at this early hour. It's been exactly 10 months since the first confirmed case of COVID-19 in Korea. In Europe and in the US, we are seeing the third wave of COVID-19, and we still see risks in Korea. But despite so, we are adjusting to our lives with COVID-19, and we are in the process of overcoming the difficulties. The Korean economy had a plus growth in the third quarter, and we have had great achievements of recovering exports, and we see that the indexes for major economies are also rebounding. The Korean industries is looking forward to taking the next leap forward through the Korean New Deal by transforming ourselves. The Digital New Deal that will innovate the overall economy, the Green Deal, which will accelerate the transformation to green low-carbon economy, the Balanced New Deal, which will lead the changes from local areas. And amidst all of these new deals, we have the MMEs. Although the number of MMEs is not large, they comprise about 16% of the total revenues, employment, and exports of Korea. Through seamless innovations, MMEs have led the strengthening of our industries, and they have played a leading role in many domains. The biosensor company iSense, which we'll present a little bit later on, has acquired an American biodiagnostic device company, and they have now exported glucose monitoring devices to 100 countries around the world, and they continue to discover new innovative startups in the digital healthcare sector to strengthen their ecosystem. An optical lens company, Seconix, is now expanding their business to automobiles from mobile cameras, and they are cooperating with global companies such as NVIDIA and Continental, and they are indeed a very strong materials, parts, and equipment company, and they are preparing to become a leading company for the transformation of the ecosystem of future cars. As you can see, MMEs are strong companies in the materials, parts, and equipment business, which is the core of next generation economy. With COVID-19 and the G2 trade war, we see fast changes in the global supply chain, and I believe that the speed and agility of MMEs are indeed suitable for adjusting to the new value chain situation. The Korean government, in order to preemptively respond to the changing GVC environment, we have announced the Materials, Parts, and Equipment Strategy 2.0 in July, and we continue to have aggressive policies. In order to concentrate our investment in R&D, we have expanded our special budget for materials, parts, and equipment, and we are working to foster top 100 companies in this area, and we will support them so that they will become one of the top companies in the world. And this year, we will designate an industrial park dedicated to materials, parts, and equipment. And for collaboration with advanced countries, we have opened the German-Korean Center for Technology Cooperation in June, and we will continue to expand our hub for global cooperation with Russia and Israel. In order to leverage the open innovation and its spread, we would like to support innovations and exchanges with startups around the world. Today, we look forward to the exchanges of MOU between Korea Institute for Advancement of Technology and the Startup Center at Aachen University, so that MMEs and hidden champions of Germany can continue to make results in the global value chain. Russia, which has high level of science and core technologies, and Israel, which has great startup companies, will be able to collaborate with Korea through the B2B meeting session. The Korean government has announced a growth strategy for innovative MMEs so that we can create an economy with a strong middle market. We hope that we will continue to support the MMEs so that we can enhance their contribution to our economy from the current 20% to 30% by 2030. In particular, by conducting the World Class Plus project and the ATC Phase 2 project, we would like to support the companies with world-class products and continue our reorganization given the industrial ecosystem, as well as create clusters for high-tech industries and support the digitization as well as the supply and demand matching. With the support of the Ministry of SMEs and Startups and the Ministry of Science and ICT, we would like to maximize the synergy effects of policies. We will continue to support the preferential treatment for the 1,000 companies in Korea, as well as provide foundation for investments such as local tax benefits. Steve Jobs once said, "If something goes smoothly, then it's time to start another great project." I do believe that striving for the next great project has what made Apple the #1 company in the world. I do hope that this gathering will provide an opportunity for the MMEs of Korea to enhance your values through seamless innovation despite the reorganization of the global value chain. I look forward to all of the participation by speakers and discussants. I do hope that your knowledge and suggestions will be reflected in government policies. This is something that we will make an effort to do so. Thank you very much for your participation, both online and offline. Thank you.
네, 정말 멋진
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Park, for your remarks. Going beyond Korea, looking at the global market as a stage, the ministry and the government continues to provide support to our MMEs. So thank you very much for that support and your efforts. And here in Korea, we have the MMEs Association, which provides various support to the activities of our MMEs. And from the MMEs Association, we have many participants, many members participating at our conference. There's one person that we would like to introduce to you. And when I call your names, please stand up and wave at the camera. So our MMEs have been working, receiving a lot of support from this association. We have Vice President Pan Won-ik, so please give him a warm round of applause. Thank you very much. And because of your efforts, our MMEs are able to continue to make progress despite the difficult circumstances. And to congratulate this conference, we have someone who has sent in his message from overseas. We have Andreas Pinkvard, who is the Minister of Economic Affairs of the NRW state. So he was not able to come in person, but he has sent his message from Germany. So let's listen, let's view the video together. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you all. It's nice to meet you at the International Conference on MME's Innovation 2020 organized by Kiat. I am pleased to introduce to you Germany's North Rhine-Westphalia state. Among the 16 German states, NRW is the state with the biggest population of 18 million and has the highest population density, not only in Germany, but also in the entire EU. If NRW were an independent country, we would be the 7th largest member of EU. Geographically, we are at the center of Europe, and from the European capital of Brussels, it takes just 2 hours by road. NRW is a state of very dynamic industrial development, where strong business support policy is offered, and where globally renowned MMEs, the Mittelstand, is concentrated. I am sure you know the concept of hidden champions. NRW actually has the most number of hidden champions here in Germany. Bayer, Henkel, Eon, RWE, and other well-known DAX-listed companies, as well as global market leaders in various industries, have their head office here in NRW. NRW is home to some of the biggest cities in Europe, and in fact, one city has over 12 million inhabitants. The Rhine-Ruhr region is on par with Paris, London, or Moscow region, and within 1 hour of driving distance, over 40 universities and research institutes are located. We have the best transport infrastructure, which helps the activities of hundreds of thousands of outstanding professors, researchers, students, and other research personnel. Also, very innovative companies are active in various fields. Moreover, NRW has the globally advanced technologies in mechanical engineering, automobile and Industry 4.0, And thus, we have hidden champions as well as hidden secrets to success. We have a strong R&D and advanced technology foundation with diverse industries converging, and our listed major companies with technical strengths and innovative MMEs and family managed businesses are leading the global market. The Internet of Things was also developed in NRW, and our research institutes and businesses collaborated for development. NRW also has excellent capacity for factories of the future. For decades, NRW has been a leader, particularly in AI, academic research, and business applied technologies. We are also a front runner in ICT. Our leading companies, the leading 5G company, Deutsche Telekom and Vodafone, contributed to NRW's 5G infrastructure and various field applications. To ensure that many more will take advantage of 5G in NRW, we are conducting various projects, not only in telecommunications, but also healthcare. Digitalization is the biggest issue in NRW. Companies' production process digitalization and service and public administration digitalization are accelerating, and NRW, as the center of Europe, has the biggest market and the most capable Mittelstands in the entire region. We are a region meeting the exact needs of Korean MMEs and of Kiat. I'm sure that we can lay the foundation for cooperation through this conference. I wish you a successful conference today, and if you are interested in NRW State, please contact us anytime. As a state with the most number of international companies in Europe, we sincerely welcome Korean businesses to our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your introduction of NRW as well as the overall industrial landscape of NRW. We look forward to your role in supporting the collaboration with Korean MMEs. Thank you very much. This brings us to the lecture portion of our conference. We look forward to listening to various ways to respond to this era of technology innovation. We have with us the first presentation titled Survival Strategies of MMEs to Gain Competitive Edges in the Global Value Chain Reorganization. We have with us Director Kim Jae-sung of Calip and Company.
반갑습니다.
Pleased to meet you. As have been introduced, I am Kim Jae-sung of Calip and Company. Thank you very much for this honor in presenting the key lecture for this conference. The title for my keynote presentation today is Survival Strategies for MMEs to Gain Competitive Advantage in GVC Reorganization. Let me start my presentation. Before I begin, let me share with you some information that is probably already familiar to most of you. According to data from 2017, the average lifespan of S&P 500 companies was 61 years in the 1960s, which went down to 18 years in 2016. And in 2018, that number shrunk to 15 years. Let's take a look at MMEs in Korea. If we dot them along the industrial growth curve, 30 years for steel, 28 for chemistry, 26 for machinery and automobiles, 25 for electric products, and 22 for electric parts, as well as 18 for ICT. If we compare the average lifespan of S&P 500 and Fortune 500 companies with the Korean MMEs, it seems that we are at the peak of our growth. And if we take a look at the increase in sales by different industries in the last 3 years, we see that most industries, including automotive, steel, and electric products, the 3-year average was less than 1%. Fortunately, there is a industry that gives us hope. This is an industry that is over 3 decades, but it is actually experiencing new growth, that is biohealth. The pharmaceutical industry actually transformed itself into the biohealth industry through a growth momentum and created a new growth curve. In this new normal era triggered by COVID-19, I believe that other industries can actually transform itself to create the next new growth curve. The contents that I would like to share with you today includes changes in the domestic and international markets, the current status of MMEs, survival strategies for MMEs, and suggestions for government policies. Let's take a look at the macro environment first. We see the spread of deglobalization, the economic depression triggered by COVID-19, as well as the reorganization of the global value chain triggered by fragmentations of the supply chain. We see that non-face-to-face has become a part of our everyday lives, and the environment has become more important than ever before. Digitization is also accelerating due to the expansion of the fourth industrial revolution. If we take a look at the future prospects by industries within manufacturing, automobiles, machinery, steel, and petrochemicals are expected to have a decrease in their growth. And we see in non-manufacturing, transportation, accommodations, hospitality, and tourism is going through difficulties. We see that ICT is actually growing. Let's take a look at the keywords for industries. We see that there is decrease in revenues due to decrease in demand, as well as that translating into lower profitability. We see the reorganization of the supply chain and GVC. We see new trends for new businesses being accelerated. If we take a look at MMEs from 2017 to 2019, we can see the size, the financial prudence, as well as the ability for innovation. And for 2019 to 2020, we took a look at the impact on different industries by COVID-19. If we take a look at the overall MMEs and divide them into the manufacturing sector and non-manufacturing sector, we see that the total revenues is quite similar, but there are many more numbers of non-manufacturing MMEs. Within manufacturing, automotive, and within non-manufacturing, sales and retail has taken a large portion in terms of asset, exports, and sales. If we take a look at financial prudence, we see biohealth, chemicals, machinery have a strong financial prudence compared to other industries, as well as ICT in the non-manufacturing sector. If we take a look at innovation power, transportation in the manufacturing sector and ICT in the non-manufacturing sector have strong innovation powers. Let's take a look at prospects for growth, profitability, and stability that is impacted by COVID-19. We see that the potential for growth, profitability, and stability has gone down for chemicals and automobiles, and we see that sales and retails, as well as transportation, has also been impacted by COVID-19. Well, when I came up with this slide, I thought about what message I should be delivering, because on the bottom there is the crisis, and on the y-axis it's influence. So let me explain what this means. We usually took a look at size, financial prudence, innovation power, and the impact of COVID-19, and that actually gave us the figure for a sense of crisis, which means how much they were impacted by COVID-19 and whether they have the actual ability to become resilient and overcome this crisis. That is on the x-axis. On the y-axis, we have influence, which means This is the size of our MMEs, the people that are employed at MMEs, as well as the contribution of a specific MME within the overall MME sector. So our analysis shows that on the upper right corner, we have the automotive industry that has a large influence in the MME sector that is experiencing a lot of crisis. And we see that textile, chemical, steel, electric parts, they are also going through a high level of crisis. But biohealth, despite the increase in debt to asset ratio because of facility investment, are not experiencing such a high crisis. And we see that transportation is experiencing a very high crisis, but ICT has not been impacted so much by COVID-19. So, in general, among MMEs, with the exception of biohealth and ICT, most industries have been exposed to the crisis triggered by COVID-19. Ever since the Great Depression, we are currently in the deepest economic recession. We have nationalism, deglobalization, the intensification of the G2 trade war, and the respreading of COVID-19, which are all impacting the very survival of MMEs. According to Managing Director Christina Georgieva of IMF, 1/3 of all MMEs in major countries, including Korea and Italy, will go bankrupt by the end of next year. And so we will see a bipolarization of MMEs. In order for MMEs to adjust to the new normal era, they must have survival strategies. At this juncture of the very survival, what are some of the survival strategies that MMEs should arm themselves with? Economic recession, the increase in uncertainties, and the reorganization of GVCs are all putting MMEs at the brink of a crisis. And so, what we need to do is make sure that we transform ourselves into a future-oriented industry. In the short run, we need to make sure that we secure liquidity and also strengthen our capabilities for crisis management. We need to make sure that we take care of our cash flow as well as profitability. Second, we need to innovate GVC and make sure that we have global competitiveness. We need to not only work with the existing GVC, but we need to make sure that we become a part of the new GVC so that we can transform the crisis into an opportunity by strengthening our competitiveness through cooperation with our suppliers and customers. Third, we need to strengthen our core competitiveness. Non-face-to-face, digitization, green, low carbon are some of the keywords for the future. We need to respond preemptively based on these keywords so that we can make a lead into the global market. We need to also find competitiveness through collaboration and cooperation. From R&D to entering the global market, we need to make sure there is cooperation between the suppliers and the customers across the value chain, and we need to make sure that there are collaboration with SMEs and startups so that we can continue to arm ourselves with competitiveness. Let's take a look at some common strategies for different industries. First is crisis management and securing liquidity. On the left, you can see an example of some companies that do still exist, but they are more companies that made a mistake in the past. And on the right, these are companies that did very well. So this is a well-known company, Neiman Marcus, which has a history of 113 years. They actually applied for bankruptcy in May, and they actually had a debt of $5 billion, and they could not overcome their liquidity crisis due to COVID-19. In order to secure liquidity, you need to be able to predict your cash flow for the future and also monitor your cash flow. You need to have stringent management of your cash flow and operation assets. If you take a look at Korea Steel Company, they were impacted by the global trade conflicts, and because of the aggressive pricing by China, They went through difficulties in 2018 and they actually focused on securing liquidity. They continue to strengthen their cash management capabilities, and they have been able to boost their sale profits to 9.2%, which is twofold increase from the year before. We need to have a crisis management system. Let me share with you a very interesting case. Amazon and Coupang are very similar companies, but Amazon, during the initial stages of COVID-19, they were not able to respond well to the sharp increase in demand, and so there was delays in delivery and the negative comments by their users. They had an inventory system where they would try to keep their inventory as low as possible for the sake of efficiency, but because of COVID-19, that has actually led to delays in demand. Even the Amazon Premium subscribers who are used to overnight delivery were not able to receive their products for 2 to 3 weeks. And so their market share in the online market actually shrunk. But at Coupang, not only were they able to maintain their service quality, but they actually provided even better services, and they have been named one of the 50 top innovative companies by CNBC. Coupang actually introduced the emergency management system from February, and they expanded the number of items for early morning delivery and same day delivery. They also tried to minimize human to human contact through coming up with ideas such as door front delivery and unmanned post boxes. We also need to manage profitability. We need to make sure that we focus on cash flows as well as creation of profits. The Taepyeongyang Group focused on construction, securities, fashion, baseball team, and basketball team, but they actually created their new brand of Amore Pacific in the 1990s, and they concentrated on their core business of beauty and health. They have been able to boost their profits from 5.1 billion won to 165 billion won, which is a 34-fold increase in just 10 years.
Next, I'd like to talk about the GVC innovation strategy. Boeing, which is a global airplane manufacturer, recently innovated its supply chain structure to reduce costs. But because of a failure in managing its partner companies, the supply chain collapsed and the launch of the Dreamliner Boeing 787 was delayed by 3 years. The outsourcing ratio was about 35 to 50%, but they wanted to increase that to 70% through the new supply chain structure. And the new technology discretion was given to the suppliers, and there were a lot of problems, quality problems that occurred in the Tier 1, Tier 2 suppliers. And because of the 3-year delay in the product release, there were a lot of orders that were canceled. To sophisticate for sophistication of a value chain management, various variables should be considered: visibility of partner companies, the lack of capacity by suppliers, increase in subcontracting, which leads to complex value chain, which may lead to collapse of value chain, and failure to secure inventory, which will interrupt business and production and the sales and lead to reputation damage. I'd like to talk about the example of NVIDIA. NVIDIA collaborated with Onsemi, which is a leading vehicle camera image sensor company, and Seconix also, which is an optical technology leader. So they collaborated to develop the autonomous drive reference camera. And they had successful technology development through collaboration among different sectors. And they had sophistication in the global value chain for autonomous driving, thereby laying the foundation for Seconix to go into the GVC. And in that later session, there will be a presentation on Seconix, and we will be able to derive a lot of implications from that case presentation. Next is we need to diversify the value chain. We need to expand the sources of our supply. If we have supply chain only in China, we need to have a two-track approach which separates the China supply chain with that of the chain for other demand markets. Hwasung Enterprise is an shoe manufacturer MMEs, which produces 18% of the Adidas rubber shoes, and they moved away from the China to improve sales. And despite COVID-19, its first quarter sales and operating profit increased by 22% and 98% respectively. Next is cluster utilization and reshoring. Particularly to decide on reshoring, there are a lot of elements that should be considered. Adidas moved its China and Vietnam factory to Germany, and they introduced the Speed factory, which is a smart factory. But they were successful in providing customized rubber shoes. However, the 3D printing technology had limitations and was not appropriate for mass production, and it required a lot of manual work. Their output was not able to catch up with the demand, and so and also most of the OEM and materials suppliers were in Asia, and there was also increase in tariff expense. And so ultimately in 2016-2017, they opened the Speed factories, but they closed in April of this year. And participating in cluster is also something that MME should utilize. You will see Eindhoven, and Eindhoven's economy of Netherlands, Eindhoven's economy depended on the ups and downs of Philips, which was the leading European electronics company. And in the 1990s, there was a restructuring and the bankruptcy of the truck manufacturer DAF. And faced with economic difficulty, the city and the university industry and the Chamber of Commerce collaborated to establish the high-tech campus, which has become an innovation complex, the Brainport. And so Brainport today is the leading technology hub in Eindhoven of the Netherlands, and it is a leading European advanced precision machinery cluster. Next, I'd like to talk about strengthening core competencies. You need to develop technology to go into the new high-growth industries such as future cars, biohealth, low-carbon, and eco-friendly industries. Reebok used R&D to break the common belief that dyes and mold are expensive, so rubber shoes should be expensive. So they had successful digitalization, and they used liquid plastic and other new types of rubbers, which led to much better quality product compared to regular rubber shoes. And we also needed to find ways to create new markets. And the Taedong Industries, which is a farming machinery MME, acquired Coyote, which is a U.S. machinery company in 1990s, and they did not commission the sales, but rather based on their own brand, they targeted the dealer network and secured the lineup to meet local demands and lay the foundation for growth. And to go into the overseas market, you need to understand the characteristics of the target market, come up with the lineup and launch strategy, and establish the commercialization and export planning accordingly. Next is you need to pursue management systems, innovation. Blockbuster used to have 9,000 stores in the US, 40 million subscribers, and $3 billion of annual sales. But it stuck to the traditional models, and because of the online streaming service, they were not able to overcome this crisis, and they closed in 2010. We also need to pursue work, VC, and manufacturing digitalization. Bosch utilized robots to increase its ABS manufacturing twofold without additional equipment. And this is a result of manufacturing digitalization. Looking at the strategies for each sectors, for the auto, chemical, and steel industries, they need to focus on overcoming the crisis. For electronic components, biohealth, they needed to strengthen the core capabilities. For wholesale and retail, they need to overcome the crisis and focus on strategy to innovate the GVC. Now let's go on to the strategies that each of the sectors should pursue. First is automobiles. I apologize for the technical problem. It is in the automobile industry where the MME's proportion is highest, and there's been an an increase in GVC risk as well as a sudden decline in sales. And so these sectors should secure liquidity and stability in the value chain. And for electronic components, they need to do constant monitoring of changes in demand in the upstream industry, and they need to secure more supply and demand sources, as well as secure the response strategy to meet changing demands. And for steels, there needs to be increase in productivity and efficiency through smart manufacturing processes and GHG reduction, byproducts recycling, and other innovative eco-friendly technologies should be developed to meet eco-friendly needs. Next, for the machinery sector, they need to focus on creating or going into new markets and diversifying GVC, international collaboration, particularly collaboration with overseas companies that have advanced technologies. For biohealth, from product development stage, they need to be mindful of the possibility of going overseas through strategy development. Through collaboration with global companies, they can become part of the GVC. And aside from the traditional sectors, we have IT, NT, AI, and other external technology convergence, which will lead to new product and business model development. Next, I'd like to talk about the strategies for non-manufacturing. Wholesale and retail. In this sector's case, they need to focus on transitioning from offline to online channels and strengthen their digital capability. Although it's not part of the slides, last mile has become a very important topic these days. So last mile has become very important because it affects experience of the user and formation of loyalty. So we should be prepared for the last mile. From the suppliers, last mile entails the highest cost, but there's a lot of labor-intensive element here. So it's not easy to increase efficiency, but we need to find a way for improvement, for cost efficiency improvement. And transport has been directly hit by COVID-19. And in this case, there needs to be continuous cost reduction, increase in transport efficiency, profitability management, and in the case of air transport, from growth-centric strategy, we need to move towards flexibility and management efficiency. And for MMEs, government support is a must to overcome the current crisis, particularly because of nationalism and COVID-19. The role of government has become more important. To overcome the crisis, MMEs will need policy support for industry foundation and infrastructure strengthening, particularly by establishing sectoral platforms. Database, a lot of information database should be shared. In the case of Japan, it is pursuing Asia Digital Transformation Project with ASEAN countries for integration of customs, import-export processes, and data. For GVC support, GVC innovation support, aside from automobile, electronics, and other sectors, there needs to be more support from the government to increase GVC support policies' efficacy. Also, we need more alliance and cooperation among the MMEs. MME-centric programs should be developed to ensure that there will be consensus platforms established among similar sectors or different sectors. In October of this year, the government MCE Competitiveness Strengthening Basic Plan was established, and there are various industries and the sectors that are mentioned here, which should all be included in the consensus platform establishment. The sector deal should proceed as scheduled. With this effort by the MMEs and government's strong support through policies, I will look forward to a successful GVC reorganization by the MMEs. Thank you very much for your participation.
네, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much for sharing with us the GVC reorganization and the COVID-19 situation. It was indeed a great opportunity to take a look at future opportunities and strategies. Thank you to Mr. Kim Jae-sung once again. Let us now go on to the second special lecture.
Innovations Linked to Global Value Chains라는 주제로 오늘 독일 현지에서 요하네스 피츠카 한독
We have with us Johannes Pitzka, the head of the German-Korean Center for Technology Cooperation.
Thank you. Are you there?
안녕하세요. 저는
안녕하세요.
피에츠카 요하네스입니다.
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
I'm the head of the recently established KGTCC in Aachen. And the KGTCC in itself is an innovation approach, an innovative approach to foster the cooperation between superb Korean middle market companies and the German research and business landscape. And as a result of these cooperations, we will see many new innovations coming to the market soon. Let me say, I feel honored to get the opportunity today to contribute to this great and unique event with my presentation.
Well, the title of today's conference is Middle Market Enterprises Innovation. For this reason, I have prepared a presentation on innovation in the German Mittelstand, and I will also explain about the link between innovation and global value chains. We can only be as much more expensive as we are better. This sentence once said by Professor Bullinger, a former president of Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, contains two key words. One is more expensive, the other is better. Of course, we all want to be more expensive because the more expensive we are, the more money we get and the better is our margin. At the same time, we all want to be better, which is a natural desire for us. But before we speak about being better, it's important to know how good we are already. So let's have a look at the next graph. Here we see the exports in 2019 for three countries: China, USA, and Germany. And we see that in this graph, Germany ranks third in the global exports list. If, however, we look at exports per capita, we see a totally different picture. In exports per capita, Germany leads with more than 17,000 US dollars, which is more than 3 times as much as the United States and even 10 times more than China has per capita. Germany is closely followed by South Korea, which ranks second in this graph. Well, talking about exports, let's have a look at why exports is so important. If we look at Germany again, 56% of the German manufacturing industry are directly or indirectly dependent on exports. This means in order to maintain this comfortable situation and to secure prosperity and employment for the future, it's of particular importance for Germany to keep up a flourishing export business. What does it mean? Foreign trade surpluses are mainly achieved on the basis of innovative, technically sophisticated products and services. So, keeping its range of products and services attractive in the future is crucial for Germany. Looking at the German industry, it's important to have a closer look at SMEs in particular, because SMEs in Germany generate more than half of the value added. In addition to this, SMEs already have important structures in place for creating innovations. Another word for German SMEs is the German Mittelstand. The German Mittelstand is often called the backbone and success factor for the German economy. More than 99% of all German companies in Germany are actually SMEs. And these SMEs provide more than half of the value added and almost 60% of all jobs in Germany. Well, in order to define what an SME is, there's various definitions in place. And I'm going to show you on the next table two definitions which characterize SMEs quantitatively, so based on numbers. We see here the definitions of IFM, which is the Institut für Mittelstandsforschung, German Institute for Mittelstand Research, if you want, compared to the definitions of the EU Commission. And both institutions give several numerical borders to say what is an SME and what is not an SME. But I would say that it is much more meaningful to characterize and to assess medium-sized companies according to qualitative criteria rather than just numbers. Because it is the structures and the processes, the strategy, it's the culture, and last not least the people in a company that determine the long-term success. It's important to set off with realizing that innovation is not the same as invention. An invention is somebody has a good idea, maybe in techniques, a better screw, or something like this. And an invention only becomes an innovation when it is successful in the market. So an invention without entry in the market or success in the market is certainly not an innovation. And this is nicely put in the sentence, inventions prove themselves in the patent office, innovations on the market. There can be several subjects of innovation. Usually, when we think of innovation, we think of products. So make a car faster, make a screw stronger, make a glass more shiny, whichever. But innovation also often refers to processes, organizations, manufacturing technologies, services, business models, and so on. And talking about innovations, it's important to differentiate them in several classes because there's several types of innovation. First, we have incremental innovations, which offer added value for an existing application solution. Next stage would be significant innovations, which offer a quantum leap compared to existing application solutions with economic relevance. Next step would be radical innovation, which offers a completely new and highly economical application solution, also called paradigm shift. And last, certainly not least, disruptive innovations. Disruptive innovations are a form of innovation in which the rules of the industry, the rules of the market, usually change completely. This we find often in business model innovations. Let's look at this. This picture shows that disruptive innovations is not new in mankind. We will talk about disruptive innovations in a minute, but if we look at this picture, this is the oldest wheel that has been found on Earth, and this wheel is about 6,000 years old. Well, why do I present this to you? Because this disruptive innovation enabled people to act in a totally different way than they did before. Other examples of early disruptive innovations are, for example, the use of horses. Riding on a horse gave people the possibility to go over long distance in a very short time. We see a sharp increase in disruptive innovations due to digitization. Examples are, some decades ago, the typewriter was replaced by word processing systems. Our black music record has been replaced by CDs, which meanwhile have been replaced by streaming systems. So when I tell my daughter I'm going to buy a new CD, she asks me, hey Dad, why don't you just stream it? So this shows me how fast development is going. Another game changer was digital photography, which caused huge problems to companies like Agfa, Kodak. And finally, 3D printing enables people to produce small components in a couple of minutes in their own garage. If we have a look at disruptive innovations regarding business models, if you look at Uber don't own a single car, but they offer mobility to people on their platform. If you look at Airbnb, they don't own one single apartment, but they enable thousands of people to make holidays in the nicest places of the world. And if we look at Amazon does not produce anything, but over the past decades, they have evolved into one of the most expensive, most valuable companies on the globe. Let's have a look now at the German innovation ecosystem. In Germany, there are funding programs available at different levels, starting from the European Union level, over the federal and federal states level, down to the municipalities. And in addition, companies, business associations, and some more institutions also offer funding programs for innovation. Another component in our innovation ecosystem is intermediate institutions who offer support for R&D activities or take an advisory role. Examples are here Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, DFG, Arbeitsgemeinschaft industrieller Forschungseinrichtungen, AIF, public foundations, chambers, and so on. One anchor point of German innovation support is the so-called ZIM, which is provided by BMWI, the German Secretary, the German Department for Commerce. This ZIM is targeted to promote market-oriented technological R&D projects in innovative, medium-sized companies, and it also expressly promotes the formation of innovation in corporations and networks. And you may note that I've put corporations and networks in red letters, and this is for a good reason, which you will see later on. This ZIM program this year has a volume of 555 million euros, and it offers up to more than €500,000 for single companies and even more than €2 million for innovation corporations. Again, corporations in red letters. The necessary conditions to be funded through this ZIM program is you need to offer a high level of innovation potential. Secondly, your project has to incorporate a certain level of technical risks. And finally, there must be good market opportunities for the product or whichever you are going to innovate. Another program for German innovation support funding is the so-called IGF, again offered by BMWI with a volume of roughly 170 million euros. This is promoting outstanding research projects and the formation of networks, again in red, between medium-sized companies and research institutions. We will see later on why these words, networks and corporations, are so important that I've put them in red. Finally, we have one more innovation support program called IGP. It's a smaller one, just 35 million euros, and this is providing impetus for the development of market-oriented non-technical innovations. Recently, there has been a new and pretty interesting approach by BMBF and BMWI. It's called Sprint GmbH, which is an agency for leap innovations, which was recently founded in Leipzig. They do a targeted search for research ideas that have the potential for leap innovation, and they support their further development. This agency is supported to work in a culture shaped by willingness to take risks, by flexibility, and by tolerance of mistakes. So hunting for innovations always is a kind of adventure. Another important cornerstone in the German innovation ecosystem is the more than 300 universities and technical colleges we have. In addition to these universities, we have some major associations outside of the university sector, and you will have heard the names of Fraunhofer, Helmholtz Society, Leibniz Association, and Max Planck Society. All these are active in different areas of research. Let's have a closer look at RWTH Aachen University. RWTH Aachen University is one of the few excellence universities we have in Germany, and this university alone has more than 250 institutes. At RWTH Aachen University, they have developed a separate innovation ecosystem, which is called RWTH Innovation Factory, GmbH. RWTH Innovation Factory acts as a central point of contact for innovation projects. It promotes the cooperation of medium-sized companies with science. They configure the project-specific competencies of the RWTH. So if an enterprise comes and says, hey, I'm interested in developing better electrical components, it's RWTH Innovation Factory that would support you in selecting the right institutes out of these 250 institutes to assure a smooth conduction of the project. And finally, Innovation Factory coordinates the cooperation of the project partners. So if they do all this, what is the outcome? What is the result of this support? First, it ensures an optimal composition of the consortium partners. Secondly, we can realize significant time savings by this support. It substantially improves the level of innovation. And last not least, it significantly simplifies the contractual processing because the company that wants to work with RWTH Aachen only has one single contact point, which is Innovation Factory. Let's have a look at the current status of innovation in Germany. In 2018, we saw a more than 4% increase in innovation expenditures, which reached a level of 172 million euros. And looking at the SMEs, again, they have even increased their innovation expenditures by more than 5%, so again, over proportional. There's roughly 180,000 companies in Germany that were innovators in 2018. Being innovator means you have introduced new or improved products or processes in the past 3-year period. In a current and very broad analysis conducted by the Institute for the World Economy, IFW, together with McKinsey and Company, which was made on behalf of the BMWI, they examined the industry-relevant economic framework conditions in Germany in an international comparison and summarized the results in a report. One key message of this report is that Germany occupies front ranks in almost all international comparative innovation rankings, which you can see here. So on the left column, we have several institutions that conducted the ranking. On the right column, you see that in all these studies, Germany ranks between first and third place worldwide. But despite this very good ranking of Germany in the international comparison, the report also highlights that this comfortable position may be in danger due to future risks and adaptation requirements. So, in order to stay on the competitive edge, it's important for Germany to develop some actions to do more to keep this good position. And in order to improve the situation, The study that I just mentioned gives concrete starting points for improvement. One is looking at the second mover opportunities. If you look at disruptive innovation, like artificial intelligence, this is nothing where Germany plays a role. So in these really high tech technologies, Germany is not in a first mover position. But this makes it even more important that Germany acts well on the second mover position. It's important that Germany remains as open as possible to the technological exchange with other countries and ensure that this exchange takes place in both directions. In view of the great need for excellently qualified specialists, the existing potential in Germany must be optimally utilized through optimal education, because demographic development limits the number of specialists. It is well known that the lack of a well-qualified workforce is one of the major hindering factors in the development of innovations. Third, the Research Allowance Act, which came into force this year, should be accompanied by measures to promote entrepreneurship and innovation, for example, in education. Number 4, with the implementation of the federal government's AI strategy coming into force in November 2018, more speed and more decisive actions are required. Number 5, the entire European Union needs more top universities on par with the top American universities and the rising Chinese universities. Here, the EU should jointly invest more in this important area. And number 6, with regard to IT infrastructure and IT skills, the efforts to support these technologies must be massively expanded in Germany. So, if we want to link innovation with global value chains, we should first explain what a global value chain is. Global value chains, or GVCs, are a complex network structure of flows of goods, services, capital, and technology across national borders. GVCs have emerged as a result of increased economic activities caused by economic globalization. The emergence of GVCs has offered developing countries opportunities to integrate themselves into the global economy by delivering jobs and higher income. In addition, participation in GVCs offers medium-sized companies the opportunity to open up foreign markets for themselves more easily, or to research more efficiently together with network partners. At the same time, however, there are also dangers in GVCs, especially for SMEs, because the multinational corporations dominate the supply chains and dictate the conditions, for example, by enforcing price cuts. This can be problematic for smaller companies. Now, how to get out of this trap? Upgrading is a proven strategy to get out of this trap. It means, in order to reduce the dependencies, it's important for the small companies and medium companies to be innovative and to come up with very modern and high-end products in order to maintain a high price level and being resistant to price cuts by the multinational companies. This pressure exerted by dominating players at the end of the value chain that has finally led to many exciting innovations. I would like to finalize my presentation with a case study of Devolo AG. Devolo is a German hidden champion, mid-sized, that has developed from small beginnings into the global market leader within a few years, thanks to consistent innovation management. Devolo was founded back in 2002 in Aachen by Heiko Habers. At the time of founding, there were 26 employees, and their focus was on easy-to-install electronic devices. In 2003, home plug products were introduced into the market, Powerline technology. Their business grew fast thanks to increasing spread of the internet. And this growing business was a big motivator for the company to further innovate. In 2009, Devolo had the global market leadership in the power line segment already. In 2010, it ranked among the top 1,000 German global market leaders. In 2015, it was awarded the NTV Medium-Sized Company Award, Hidden Champion 2015. In 2016, it was nominated for the Power of AC Innovation Prize Region Aachen 2016. And since then, they have achieved more than 400 international seals and test victories. Today, Devolo is an international specialist in high-performance home networking as well as in networking solutions in the industrial environment and in the energy sector. They have around 300 employees from numerous nations. Almost half of their employees is working in R&D. Their sales are around 100 million euros, and they have meanwhile sold more than 42 million power line adapters, the so-called Internet from the socket. The success formula of Devolo is pretty simple. They have flat hierarchies. They have short decision-making paths. They have a high degree of personal responsibility, and there's an atmosphere of creative freedom. The founder, Heiko Habers, puts it this way: we can decide in the smallest circle within minutes what we are doing. And this sentence by the founder expresses something that we often find with hidden champions. This is a high level of self-confidence and a high level of independence. Let's have a look at the Devolo innovation process. They have a strategic direction. They are working towards intelligent networking, so-called smart connectivity. Due to their own development strength, Devolo can get involved in research and funding projects that create the basis for new generations of technology. Devolo experts have worked in over 20 international projects, committees, and standardization organizations in the past few years. And there's 6 steps in the Devolo project implementation process. First is always the question, which technologies and innovations should be sought in the future? Second stage is application for a certain project. Number 3 is the selection of suitable project partners. Then content design of the project. And then, of course, the implementation phase itself, which takes long. And finally, the evaluation phase with the creation of a delivery report. Cooperation projects, as described here, using the example of Devolo AG, have proven to be extremely effective. They offer the opportunity to build high-performance networks in a relatively short period of time. It allows for the implementation of knowledge transfer that saves costs and resources. It helps the participants to gain a significant competitive edge. And finally, unique innovations can be created that are difficult to copy. And now it's easy to see why I have put the words networking and cooperation in red letters. It is common sense that cooperation projects are innovation drivers. There's no other form of project work in innovation that is as effective as innovating in networks and innovating in corporations. Kamsahamnida.
Well, as I pointed out in my presentation, innovators can multiply the effect significantly when they conduct innovation projects in corporations and networks. Innovators should therefore take this into account already in the project planning phase in order to maximize the outcome. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We need another big round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us today to give us the innovative presentation. Once again, thank you. Bye-bye. 네, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. Innovation strategies for MMEs and the future direction that MMEs should be taking. That was the theme of the lecture by Mr. Johannes Fitzka, who is the head of the Korea-German Technology Cooperation Center. Thank you very much again. It's not even 8 o'clock in Germany right now, so it's early morning hour, but he connected with us, so thank you very much for your participation. Next, we'd like to go on to a discussion session on the topic that we heard about earlier, which is on the survival strategy of MMEs to secure competitive advantage in GVC reorganization. So the moderator of this session is Professor Kim Yong-jin of Seogang University, who is doing new business model research based on knowledge management and digital technology innovation. As for our panelists, we have Director Kim Jae-sung of Gallup & Company, who was the earlier speaker, and Kim Byung-hyun, who is the CEO of Susan Heavy Industries, who is very much interested in MME's innovation and growth. And last but not least, we have Chung Eun-mi from KIET, Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade, and she heads the Growth Driving Force Industry Research Team at KIET. So we'd like to welcome the moderator and the panelists of this discussion session. Yes, we would appreciate a warm round of applause for our panelists.
예, 전문가 여러분들.
We have experts from different fields who are participating in this panel discussion session. So please participate in this discussion, and to our online participants also, you can send in your questions as you listen to the discussion. I will turn over the microphone to Professor Kim Yong-jin. Please go ahead. Thank you very much. I'm sure you were able to listen well to the earlier presentation by Director Kim Jae-sung. The presentation was on industry trends and the focus of our future efforts. And the second presentation from Germany had to do with the hidden champions in Germany. Their Mittelstands have a lot of experience with regards to innovation and with regards to accumulating good experiences. So that was the second presentation. I'm not going to introduce our panelists again because they've been briefly introduced. I'm going to designate a panelist and ask them a question, and then we will also listen to the overall assessment by Director Kim Jae-sung at the end of our program. In Korea right now, if you look at the proportion of R&Ds, and not just for the MMEs, but for the entire corporate sector, yes, we do have some companies that focus on R&D, but the annual R&D expense of our companies is about 67 trillion won. And out of that, major companies take up 76%, MMEs or SMEs 13%, ventures 11% or 12%. So the statistics are drawn up in this manner. The MME's investment ratio, that has never been calculated. So the MMEs, middle market enterprises, in terms of the definition, the identity of the MMEs, we still don't have any clear answer here in Korea. So mostly they are seen as companies that work closely with the major companies. We are still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are saying that there's been a change in the global value chain. Many people are talking about that. So changes in the GVC, what kinds of changes specifically do we mean? Previously, how were we participating in the GVC? What changes have occurred? And thus, what should MMEs do to respond to these changes? So I have two questions on this topic. And I'd like to ask Dr. Chung Eun-mi, since you've done a lot of research in this field, you would probably know well the MMEs in Korea. What was the way by which they participated in the GVC so far, and what kinds of changes have occurred in the GVC? We've heard about reshoring and many other types of changes, but what were the specific changes that have occurred? And the MMEs right now, what kinds of preparatory work should they be making?
Well, concerning the global value chain, I think MMEs of Korea participated in GVCs probably because of cost. Well, we have looked at various examples of innovation through presentations, but usually participation in GVC is due to cost. And for large companies, they're looking for markets. And so that is the difference. And with this difference, we have seen many companies participate as latecomers. But for COVID-19, that actually made it very difficult to participate in GVCs just because of cost. It is a pandemic, and depending on the response to the pandemic, the risks are different according to government policies. And it definitely is triggering changes in the responses by companies. And this will not be solved just because COVID-19 goes away. We see that US, China, and other countries are turning to protectionism, and that really is a structural issue. This is due to the structures of industries and the landscape of different industries. And so, how should MMEs respond? You need to first define your role within MMEs. Well, we have listened to the head of the German-Korean Center for Technology Cooperation, and he has mentioned that we need to find a qualitative role to play within the GVC, and that is important. MMEs will need to create innovations in terms of value and price and organization as well in order to respond to changes in GVC.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for that answer. The way that our MMEs participated in the existing GVC was to focus on reducing costs. So they had moved overseas to China, to Vietnam, and other countries for production and supply to the major companies. For the major companies, they moved overseas in search of markets. So that was the general phenomenon then. So the MMEs also went overseas following the major companies, whether it's automobiles or chemicals industry. There has been a joint move overseas. But COVID-19 has actually interrupted such movement. And many people now are looking at the domestic market and the fact that if there is no clusters formed within the country, we're going to be hit hard during crisis. We've come to or begun to realize this fact. So as Dr. Chung Eun-mi has mentioned just now, with regards to what MME should be doing right now, well, market innovation is something that we did, but what this means is that we have to identify new issues and come up with solutions to these problems. On this particular topic, I do want to mention or elaborate that ultimately it has to do with value innovation. So we know what we should be doing. The question is how we are going to do that. So next, I'd like to ask our CEO, Kim Byung-hyun, since you are working in the field, what is your impression of the changes that have happened recently. So, how are the MMEs participating in the GVC right now? And after or post COVID-19, what should they be doing? So, please share your thoughts with us. That's a very difficult assignment that has been given to us. As we heard earlier, because of COVID 19, the global value chain and changes in the GVC, I don't think it's being felt all out. However, as many people have mentioned, there has been a sudden change this year. So, particularly for export-led companies, export companies, they've seen a huge drop in their export volume. But with regards to whether this will bring about major shift in the GVC, it's still difficult for the enterprises themselves to determine that. Regardless of whether we have COVID-19 or not, within the GVC, there are certainly changes that are happening. For our company, we heard about going overseas with the major companies, but for us, we are not directly supplying to the major companies. We do our independent sales of our products and services. And so our situation is a bit different, but to talk about this topic from our perspective, right now we have gone into about 90 different countries for sales. And recently, one phenomenon that we are seeing in the emerging countries is a focus on localization or strengthening their domestic industries. So, for a specific country, and this is not limited to this specific country alone, but there has been recent conclusion of FTAs and others. But anyhow, in this particular country's case, the localization component, component localization rate, I mean, if the rate is not high, the tariff on these products is set very high. And previously, there was a lot of dependency on exports, but now there's been a change of perspective. They want to create their own value chain. They want to have localization, and that is being pursued as a government policy. So for export companies like us, we are hit with a double uh, difficulty. And so, as Korea did previously, these countries, through policies, are trying to grow their domestic sectors and industries, and many benefits are being provided to their local companies. So, for export companies like us, we don't receive any of those benefits. Plus, the tariff and non tariff barriers are going up, which makes our situation very difficult. So, we are seeing those changes happening in the emerging countries, developing countries recently. So, previously, through Korea and through China, there were a lot of huge manufacturing bases built in these countries. And based on this, on these factories, the global shipping lanes and transport routes had been utilized for export. But now the situation has changed. We need more diversification. And that, of course, applies to all countries around the world because protectionist policies and trends are going to continue on globally. And so export companies in Korea will be hit. Samsung Electronics, Hyundai Motors, these major companies, when they went overseas, they helped with the MMEs go overseas together. But then for the regular MMEs, they were not able to benefit from this umbrella effect of the major companies. So that is a huge challenge that we are facing right now. And for companies that are able to go overseas with their major companies, that's good for them. But then if you don't have that choice, we're going to be faced with a major challenge.
그
Yes, thank you. We have heard from our two panelists So we have also heard of various industries and how they need to have their own survival strategies. The two panelists talked about market innovation and value innovation. On the other hand, Mr. Kim Byung-hyun has also mentioned that if the MMEs are independent, if they are not simply a supplier to large companies, then the current situation where protectionism is increasing, then localization is probably the only choice that they can make. So what do you think of this? Could you speak shortly on this topic, Director Kim Jae-sung? Well, I completely relate to our two panelists. I have no choice but to do so because from cost efficiency to striving for value, that is the transformation we are going through. And this change was not only triggered by COVID-19, but also because of the fact that each nation is taking the policies to focus on themselves rather than coexistence. And this is not only due to the G2 trade war. Well, I am a consultant, and when I conduct consulting for clients, I always hear that, as Mr. Kim has mentioned, it seems that everyone is supporting the automotive industry and machineries, but no one's supporting us. When we are SMEs, then Kotra supports us, but no one is supporting MMEs outside of automotive and machineries. Hydraulic cylinders are the main products of one of our speakers today in session 2, and they mentioned that when their revenues was less than 100 billion won, they had support from Kotra, but now they have grown into MMEs, and now no one supports them, and they cannot move into the market for large companies, and they cannot remain an SME. So they're confident about their technology, but it's very difficult to move into the next market. Although localization is probably the only answer, the person who's making hydraulic cylinders has mentioned that they need to go overseas, but they need to start with samples. And when the market starts to respond to their samples, then they hire an agent, then they set up their office, and then they can build a factory there. Sending samples, hiring an agent is possible alone, but building an office or building a factory is not easy. So localization is the answer, but localization by an MME alone is certainly not easy. Thank you very much. We are pressed for time.
한번 논의를
So we're going to talk about one more topic. As we just heard, the global environment is changing very fast in a direction that is not favorable for MMEs, also for SMEs. So I think it's a clear reality that this is happening. How are we going to overcome this challenge that we face? On this issue, as Dr. Chung Eun-mi mentioned earlier, innovation would be very important. It's an example that you probably are very aware of, which is Siemens. The Amberg factory of Siemens, well, among the major companies, Siemens is well known to provide the materials and components to the major companies. This factory changed its factory setup 5,000 times a year and came up with 1,000 different products. So just think about it for a moment. 5,000 rounds of setup change each year. Do you think that is possible? So that is the issue for MMEs right now, the dilemma of value versus cost. Korean MMEs also, they want market and value innovation. And to have that innovation, you need to offer products and services that the customers want. However, digital transformation is still an ongoing process. We are not well prepared for it yet. And the R&D investments by the MMEs, that proportion is still quite low. And the government also, once the SMEs graduate and become MMEs, the uh, don't government doesn't really provide much support. So I think there are over 50 different programs for SMEs, whereas none for MMEs. So there is this sense of um, deprivation among the MMEs also. So these are the challenges that we face as MMEs. But is it possible for us to transition to a system like that of a Siemens? We have to think about that. And to do that, what should we do? We need to have R&D investments, digital transformation, and that's not necessarily R&D investment, but it's investments with regards to corporate innovation, enterprise innovation. So will MMEs be able to achieve these two things together or alone, or should there be support from the government? What do you think, Dr. Chung?
That is a very difficult question. I believe that it cannot be done alone. According to a recent analysis, when companies innovate, rather than doing better in the market that they are in, companies with a mid to long-term vision of a better market are more successful for innovation. It means that they are able to discover new value from trends. Despite the difficult economic situation recently, we have seen some good results in some industries, mostly in health, cleaning, home, and premium. These are some of the keywords that led to better results. So it's not just about making things better, but it's about knowing what the market wants and responding appropriately. And these combine manufacturing with other values. And this cannot be done alone. We talk about how we need convergence and integration, and that cannot be done by any single company alone. We need to make sure that because demands are becoming quite complex, we need to have players with strengths combining their strengths to create new values. For R&D, there's a lot of government support, and we saw in one of the presentations that innovation is not invention. R&D should be left up to R&D. And if the companies need a technology, there are ways to find that technology. This is the same for policy support. Core technologies are not everything. We need to make sure that we are able to provide technologies to companies that are relevant. That is the policy that MMEs need. And how are we going to advance into new markets? We need to take a look at the current market, but also future competitiveness. It cannot be left alone to SMEs or MMEs or large companies. Well, these large companies, they have their brand value, so you can work together. For example, Siemens. If you go to an international trade show, if there are Siemens and Amazon at the show, you can see there are seminars and presentations by their suppliers and partners all throughout the day. And so they're using the brand name as an opportunity to move into an international market. And so we need to make sure that if you have the power to innovate, partnerships and networking are very important. Yes, thank you very much.
사실은 뭐 우리 정인본부장
In fact, what Dr. Chung is saying is that the companies themselves should come up with mid to long term strategy and vision. And the companies that do so have better performance and results. And in fact, I should also mention something very important. Invention and innovation are two different things. According to the German presentation we heard earlier, we saw a very interesting result from a recent survey. The top 1% inventions by our Korean universities, but the number of citations or applications within Korea of those inventions is only about 10%, 10, 17%. The remaining 83% is utilized by overseas or foreign companies. So I was quite surprised at this result of the analysis. So Korean companies, whether they are SMEs, MMEs, or major companies, they are not collaborating with overseas uh, research institutes or academic institutes. But of course, collaborating with professors and universities is not easy. But we have these excellent technologies in the country already, and we can use those to improve our performance. These technologies were developed with the support of the government, but we are not using those. It's the foreign companies that are using these Korea developed technologies more. And so I think looking at this example, I mean, invention and innovation being different, that's another issue. But if we utilize these existing technologies in the countries, that's going to be of great help. So we need to really think about collaborating well with our research institutes, our universities. So that's one thing that we need to be mindful of. So next, let's go on to talk about alliances and cooperation. I don't think we've ever focused on solidarity or alliances and cooperation. It was always competition. So that's one issue that we really need to think about. And Mr. Kim Byung-yeon, what do you think? Yes, you've pointed out something very important. Alliances or solidarity and cooperation, that's something needed in the business community also. So solidarity and cooperation, people often think that's a social issue, and in business people think we have to always compete. But I think we need to see this from the perspective of value chain also. Of course, the different industries have different characteristics. As we heard from Mr. Kim Jae-sung earlier, the business cycles are becoming shorter, whereas the bio industry and others, their cycle is becoming longer. So we are a company uh, in constructing or building construction machineries. And the biggest dilemma for a traditional company like us is that the market has matured. And so, in an industry that is so mature, how are we going to have innovation? That is a major task for us. Innovation itself, of course, something that our company thinks about, but then on the other hand, how are we going to form alliances and cooperate with the other companies in the same industry? That's another thing that we have to think about, because I think Koreans tend to think that collaboration means that the other company will steal away what you have, but that's not necessarily so. And after COVID-19, particularly for MMEs, we really need to think about how we're going to collaborate more with the companies within the same sector or industry. Of course, there have been a lot of attempts, particularly for non-core components. There have been a lot of efforts to strengthen cooperation, to lower prices, and enhance quality. So I think that's one example of enhancing the GVC. The example of Siemens that we heard about earlier, well, Siemens is a global company. It can go its own way. But if different MMEs participate to take on different roles, then I think that kind of an utopian plan, a dream, can become a reality here in Korea as well.
거는
Well, thank you. Cooperation and alliance is also applicable for R&D. For example, if there is a specific technology that we need, we can collaborate in R&D. Then we need to think about how to share the resulting technology. If we have the answer to that, then there could be various types of cooperation and collaboration. But institutionally, that is somewhat difficult in Korea. And so we need to take a look at how to conduct collaboration and cooperation. Maybe Director Kim Jae-sung could talk about how this is possible. Well, our moderator and our two panelists have talked about Siemens and their R&D, as well as the ability to create different products. We do have companies that have such capabilities. We are making investments into R&D. It is happening, but because revenues are increasing quickly, in terms of numbers, it doesn't look like they're making a lot of investments into R&D. But including cooperation and collaboration, I have one example that I would like to share with you. There is a Korean company exporting to 174 countries, and they have the third largest market share with a revenue of 50 billion in a traditional market. They have a decelerator that goes into a valve, and the R&D experts in that company say that they are not high tech. For example, they're not semiconductors, they're mid tech. But if they visit a mid tech company in Europe, then the R&D experts there are in their 60s or older, which means that just like Korea, in advanced countries, these mid tech technologies are not being fostered, and people don't want to work in these fields. They are able to export to 174 countries because there are so many companies that need these mid-tech parts, but there are not many companies that actually produce these mid-tech parts, and they continue their R&D in this field. So it's not high-tech, and so possibly they can be caught up by Southeast Asia or China in the future. But when the weather turns cold, you could, for example, conduct various manipulation to make sure that the valve does not crack. This type of technology is being researched by this Korean MME, and so they're about 10 years ahead of other companies in the same industry. So for high tech, it's very difficult for MME to go into the world alone. They need to collaborate with companies like NVIDIA. But for MMEs, you need to take a look at the technologies that you are working with, and you need to take a look at what you are doing best. And you need to take a look at the consumers, not only your direct consumers, but those who are your end consumers. And if you decide what they need, then you can decide the direction of your research. Well, thank you very much. Just like Director Kim has mentioned, he has mentioned 2 points. Traditionally, during the last 50 years, do you know which industry was the most profitable? Agriculture was the most profitable. Many people believe that agriculture is a dying industry. Many people believe that shoes are a dying industry. But if you are the only company in that industry, because the industry cannot disappear altogether, your profitability will be very high. It's an issue of corporate strategy. And just like Director Kim has mentioned, and just like we mentioned about Siemens, Siemens accepts orders from customers. Customers does the digital design because they're using a digital twin. And all they have to do is produce what the customer has designed. That is the core. Well, Dr. Chung has mentioned we need to do market innovation and value innovation. The core is, what do the customers want to do? We need to understand that. Not what you want, what you think is better technology. You need to take a look at what your customers want. What do they need? We need to understand their needs. And then if we expand that to the global, then that is even more difficult to understand because there are industrial structural changes and differences. Our panel discussion is very short because the presentations have gone on for longer, and I don't like it when you don't give me a lot of time to conduct discussions, but we are almost at the end of our time. Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you for sharing your statements with us. Let me try and summarize what we have discussed. MMEs are at a point where they are facing a crisis because of the global value chain, but we need to innovate and move forward. And what is the most important is to find value in satisfying the needs of our customers. We need to think from the position of our customers. We need to knock on the door of the global market. And we need to have R&D based on collaboration and cooperation, as well as reviewing new opportunities in our industries through cooperation and collaboration. I do believe that that will be the future direction for MMEs in Korea. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you to the panelists as well.
네, 열띤 토론 함께.
Thank you very much, Professor Kim, for leading the discussion, and also thank you to our panelists for your insightful words. That information that you share with us, as you mentioned, will be valuable in establishing better futures for our MMEs. If you have any questions or comments on the discussion that we just had, we are showing you an email address on the screen, so you can send in your questions and comments to this email address on the screen right now, and we will deliver those to our panelists to get answers from them. We're going to have a special event from now on. Kiat with the RWTH Ahen University have been collaborating and working hard for MME's growth in our two countries. We'd like to take a moment to strengthen this collaboration further and prepare for the post-COVID era through this online MOU signing ceremony. And I'd like to introduce to you some contents of this MOU. Through this MOU signing, Korea's MMEs, Kiat, and RWTH Ahen University startups will be able to strengthen collaboration. First of all, technology and business cooperation. Second, information exchange and networking promotion. Thirdly is promoting technology development business cooperation programs, linkages. So we'd like to have the signing ceremony. From Korea, we'd like to invite President Seok Kyung-chol of Kiat up on the stage. Welcome. President Seok also, along with RWTH Ahen University, has been working hard for the MME's innovation in Korea and in Germany. So MMEs plus startups in Korea will be receiving more assistance through this collaboration between Kiat and Ahen University. From Germany, we have Professor Thomas Gries of Ahen University, who is connected via online. So,
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You must be start your day very early. Thank you. 자, 그럼 지금부터 여러분.
So we're now going to have the MOU signing ceremony. President Seok Kyung-chol of Kiat and Professor Thomas Gries of RWTH Ahen University, please sign the MOU.
The agreement. 네, 이렇게 완료가 됐습니다. 여러분 큰 박수.
Warm applause for the signing. Congratulations.
Commemorative photograph. Please hold the agreement and show your agreement to the camera. Thank you. Congratulations. 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. For strengthening collaboration between the two countries, we have had the signing of the MOU. Thank you so much. And President Seok, please remain on the stage. And Professor Thomas Gries of Aachen University has connected with us in the early morning hour, and so we'd like to hear some remarks on this MOU signing ceremony from him, as well as his plans for the future. So once again, we're going to invite Professor Thomas Gries.
Share with us a few words to congratulate the ceremony.
President Dr. Suk, my dear friend Dr. Suk, it's a great pleasure to see you in good health and shape. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to give some words about the MOU and our cooperation. We are here in a very historical place. So 150 years ago, this gentleman, it is Emperor Friedrich Wilhelm, together with local industry, founded Aachen University. It's now, this year, our 150 years anniversary. Also, we are in a very historical industrial area. More than 50 years ago, Korean miners and nurses came to Aachen and the region of Aachen, working in the coal industry and supporting the economical upswing of Germany. Thank you for that. Kamsahamnida. It must be said today there are no coal mines anymore, but today Aachen has become the region of innovation. RWTH Aachen University is now #1 university in Germany when it comes to research, but also industry and institute cooperation. Just to name my faculty, the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering is organizing 2 excellence clusters in Industry 4.0 and bio-based fuels, together with all other researchers of the university. And these 2 excellence cluster addresses the major trends in the industry, digitalization, bioeconomy. And just to name, around to the university, there is the largest industry university convergence center in Western Europe. We call it just campus, because for us it's just normal that university and industry works together. Today, we are signing the MOU between RWTH Aachen University and the Korean Institute for Advancement of Technology. For us, this is a remarkable milestone in our collaboration between Germany and Korea. There are numerous examples of successful collaboration between Korean MME and our university. Last year, I still remember very much, I had the great opportunity to give a keynote at your conference about these success examples. So I don't want to repeat this because this will take 45 minutes, which we don't have. But just to say, in 6 weeks, the Korean-German Technology Cooperation Center, close to this place, just 5 kilometers away, will open. And of course, this MOU between our university and KIAT, together with the opening of the Korean-German Technology Cooperation Center, will foster definitely the collaboration and will contribute to the success of Korean MME in Europe. I want to thank you very much for the trust and the confidence in our cooperation, and I'm looking for a bright future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your good word to this event. And also, we must have another distinguished guest to give us the congratulatory message. We'll have the Professor Manfred Martin, our lecturate delegate for Korea. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Thank you so much. And would you please give us just your congratulatory message?
Thomas, 안녕하세요. 저는 Martin Yosunim, and I'm Director's Delegate for collaboration with Korea. So in this function, I'm very happy to have a possibility to say some words. As my colleague, Professor Gries, already mentioned, we celebrate at Aachen University our 150th birthday, and our relation with Korea started a bit later, but already nearly 70 years ago. So in the 50s of last century, we had the first Korean student coming to our university. We found this in our alumni files. And since then, we have established collaborations and MOUs with the 6 leading universities in Korea, starting from Seoul National University to Pohang and KAIST and so on. So very successful collaborations. And of course, we have also established very good collaborations with the Korean institutes of various disciplines, and in particular, the collaboration with KIAT. I remember the first MOU was signed 5 years ago by the then President Schmachtenberg. And now we are very happy that this collaboration is full of life and goes on for another 5 years. As a result of our collaboration with Korea over nearly 70 years now, we have a very active alumni association. So this is the biggest alumni association we have in Aachen. This is the Korean alumni, being most of them now in Korea, but some of them stayed in Germany. And as a result of our good relations, the former president of this alumni association, our alumnus, Dr. Joseph Kim, helped us to establish a liaison office of Aachen University in Korea. So if there is any need for contact, local contact in Korea, please contact this liaison office. I will be happy to help to find this office. It's rather new, but we are very happy about that. So this is, I think, enough what I have to say. Once again, I want to emphasize on behalf of Aachen University and its rector, who is unfortunately not able to join today, how happy we are and how important this collaboration with KIAT is for the future development of Aachen University, we must say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your warm-hearted speech for our participants who are participating in this conference. 네, 따뜻한 말씀 함께 해주세요.
Thank you very much for those warm remarks. We had Professor Manfred Martin, Directorate's delegate for Korea from Aachen University, who connected online to share his congratulatory message for the signing of the MOU. We look forward to more activities on collaboration between KIAT and Aachen University to encourage our MMEs to launch overseas more. So there are a lot of participants with us online, so thank you very much. We appreciate that. And we will conclude the MOU signing ceremony with this, and we will be going on to part 2. Session 2 will be on global competency enhancement case presentations. We do have some announcements before we go on to session 2.
진행과 더
We have both online live streaming along with the offline participation. If you are participating online, you are able to participate in our events. For those of you who are participating offline, if you fill in the questionnaires on your desks, you will be able to participate in the event. For those of you participating online, please use the QR code on the screen to fill in your surveys. And for the first 100 people filling in the survey, we will be providing coffee certificates, and we will also have a lucky draw for Galaxy Tap and chicken certificates. And we look forward to your feedback to improve our future conferences. The QR code for the questionnaires are being provided on the YouTube screen as well as our website. We look forward to your participation, and I hope you become a lucky winner of our lucky draw. Let us continue to part 2. Part 2 will cover the global competency enhancement case presentations. The case presentations will be by iSense, Seconix, Koyoung Technology, and SHPAC. 4 companies will be presenting. We did receive some questions prior to the conference, so we will be asking each of our presenters to answer one question at the end of the presentation. And for those of you who are participating online, please utilize the email address on the screen to ask questions and provide comments. We will answer your questions as soon as possible.
We'd like to go on to the first case presentation on iSense. We have a CEO, Nam Hak-hyun of iSense, who will give a presentation on iSense's global market leap through strengthening business portfolio. Please welcome him with a warm hand.
중견기업 혁신 컨퍼런스에서
It's a great honor for iSense to be presenting at this international conference on MME's innovation. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to begin with a brief overview of our history. In 2000, we started as an in-campus venture, and in 2003, we developed our first glucose monitoring system, and it was the first specification that we introduced, a novel specification we introduced in the market at that time. In 2007, we built the Gihung factory. In 2010, we built our factory in Songdo. We began to continue to grow our business portfolio. By 2016, we acquired a small company in the US, and in the 2020 COVID-19 era, this company is serving as a growth engine for us. So right now, it's been 20 years since we established, and the company, our revenue is about 205 billion. We have over 700 employees currently, and we are exporting to about 110 countries right now. Looking at our business portfolio briefly, we have a blood glucose monitoring system, and POCT stands for point of care testing. So using consumable goods in the field at certain sites to receive analysis results. So these are small diagnostic tools which comprise an important part of our business. But blood glucose monitoring is the biggest revenue-making business. But to strengthen our competitiveness, we are trying to have continuous glucose monitoring. And with regards to POCT, we're going to expand our business to include blood coagulation and electrolyte blood gas monitoring. So I'm going to introduce to you what these are more specifically. First of all, our CGM, continuous glucose monitoring system. Let me talk about that briefly. If there is high blood glucose or low blood glucose that suddenly occurs, it's going to be a very dangerous situation for the patients. So you need to know the level of your blood glucose to determine whether you need insulin shots or not. And so CGM and its need is increasing by the day. And the CGMs use very small needles. It's possible to have very precise analysis, and so you need sensor technologies, IT technologies. So it's actually very difficult to develop this product. In the early 2010s, this product was initially developed, but it had low functionality. It did not receive any spotlight in the market. But then in 2010, it grew to a 800 billion won market, and there's been a global demand for this product. And so we expect that the 30% annual growth, but in fact, we're showing 70% growth every year. So for us also, in 2015, we began to develop the CGM, and we will release or launch our product next year. Our product, as you can see on this photo, is a very small, simple product. So it offers good value for money, and so we feel it's going to be quite useful for many people. We call this CareSense Air because when you attach it to your body, it's very light. It's as if you're just breathing. And so our product is composed of the sensor and the applicator, which you attach to the body, and there's a user application. And so I will talk about this very briefly. So you can attach this equipment on your body through steps 1, 2, and 3. And when you do that, when you press the button, a 200 micrometer small needle goes into the skin and to measure the cellular interstitial fluid to determine the blood glucose level. It's easy to use, convenient to use, and so as you can see, through a graph, you can see real-time data results. It is represented in numbers, and the statistical data analysis results can be accessed as well. And so individuals can continue to monitor the blood glucose level to maintain health. And as you can see in this product, data is stored on cloud, and the medical staff and the family members also have access. So the insulin and other medical or drug information are also stored here. So a single ecosystem can be formed through the CGMS. And in 2021, 2022, this is going to be our growth engine for our business. So this is the product portfolio that we have developed. That is our first strategy. Second strategy for our company is the PT2, which stands for prothrombin time, or it's a machine that uses to measure the amount of time needed for blood coagulation. Blood coagulation is important because, as you can see, warfarin, patients who are on warfarin or other medicines, these medicines, if it's too much, it's going to be poison to the patient. So it's important to have monitoring continuously to ensure that the appropriate amount of dosage will be given to the patients. So a small venture company in the US called CoaguSense the sensor technology was developed by CoaguSense, but the measuring device was not competitive, so it did not receive attention in the market. And iSense came in, and we identified the potential of CoaguSense. In 2016, we acquired the company, and our electronics team, our equipment development team, worked on improving the IT technologies that go into this machine. And in 2019, we received FDA clearance waiver, and which means that anyone, even without training, can use this equipment. And in 2020, we were hit by COVID-19. The patients were not able to go to the hospitals for monitoring. They preferred to stay home for monitoring. And so this PT2 suddenly became another growth engine for our company. It contributed to 10% growth for us. And as you can see, It's very easy to use this equipment, and a papillary is used to draw a small amount of blood, and within 1-2 minutes, the coagulation time can be measured exactly. And so in the future, we know that this is going to continue to be a growth engine for us. This is a list of the strengths, the pros of our machine. So again, it offers great value for money to the users. And this market in the US right now is growing at 9 to 10% per year. So in the future, it's going to be another growth engine for iSense. So the second portfolio, to summarize that, first is new product, and second is using our technology in the existing products to strengthen it further, to increase its uptake in the market. So CoaguSense is in Silicon Valley right now, and so based on these new machines, they are developing new items. And outside of the US, it's trying to find new markets also. Also, for patients who are taking new blood coagulation machines, we're trying to get them to use our equipment, and we are trying to strengthen our growth foundation overseas through this product. Next, we have a new business on immune analysis. So when there is an antibody or an antigen, and they are all proteins. So we need to be able to analyze these proteins. In protein analysis, one major issue is that you need to have very well trained, well experienced personnel in the hospitals for exact monitoring. But this small cartridge, all of these steps that should be done in a laboratory, you can just put that in this machine, and the robot arm will conduct the testing as any laboratory technician would do. And so it's very easy to use. It's a compact machine. You can put it on your desk, and it gives you the same results as a well-trained laboratory technician would do. And so we are close to completion of development of this product, and KFDA and the US FDA, we have applied for approval from these agencies. This product also will be a new business product for us in blood glucose monitoring, and it'll be another growth engine for us. Recently, with COVID-19, the antigen and antibody measurement and monitoring or diagnosis has become very important. And so using this machine, we can determine whether antibodies have been formed in COVID-19 or other types of disease patients. So we have these efforts on one hand, but on the other hand, we are trying to focus on the POC. Well, the protein analysis takes up the biggest proportion in the POCT market. So we have bought shares of Precision Biosensor recently to participate in the management of the company and also to expand our business portfolio. In the case of Precision Biosensor, in October of this year, received approval for technology-based listing, and it will be listed on the KOSDAQ early next year. So along with the growth of this company, our business portfolio will grow as well, and we'll be able to expand our business scope further. So I've talked about our existing businesses, our existing efforts in order to create or expand our portfolios. I also talked about collaborating with the existing companies through M&As. But on the other hand, we are also developing new technologies. We are trying to identify new technologies to prepare for the future. So we are doing accelerator programs in order to discover new startups, particularly in the fourth industrial revolution sectors. And we're trying to help foster these ventures, and our strategies, operations, and experiences that we have accumulated so far. Well, we've begun to provide assistance to in-campus ventures, but also the other small ventures in the market. So we will be able to offer our consulting experiences, mentoring, so that we can grow together. So we are participating in this accelerator program as well. So to summarize what I've just mentioned, we have new products in new fields, and establishing foundation for growth overseas, and new startup developments. These are the strategies that whereby we are expanding our portfolio. Our company was established by me and my co-professor at Kangwon University, Cha Geun-sik, in 2000. So we've been working together for the past 28 years. We're almost like brothers now, and we have continued to grow the business together. And in the future, for national development and for social development, we promise to contribute and do our best as well. So that is the example of case presentation by iSense. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, CEO Nam Hak-hyun of iSense. And we have received a question beforehand. So let me ask you this question. So we think there must have been various difficulties while growing the company this much. What was the most difficult experience in managing the company, and how did you overcome that difficulty is the question that we have received. When you do venture business or any type of business, you would know that, for example, Chairman Lee Gun-hee of Samsung, he put together the Anycall phones and burned them up, and he did that ceremony because he wanted to reduce solve the problem of poor quality. What we did was we began to produce in a small warehouse in our university campus, and we built the factory in Songdo, and we thought it was high-tech advanced factory, but then our error rate, our poor quality rate went up dramatically. So for half a year, we thought that we were going to go bankrupt because of this quality problem. And 2008 was the time of the financial crisis globally. But then we wanted to build this factory. We borrowed a lot on the yen, and with the financial crisis, exchange rate went up. And so suddenly we had a twofold increase in our debt. So we had the financial crisis as well as the quality crisis at the same time. There was only one way for us to overcome this problem. We needed to deal with the quality problem through trial and error. Very fortunately, we had a 5-year moratorium on our payment, and so we had to continue to work hard to earn money to pay back our loan. And based on the extreme efforts of our employees, we were able to identify the cause of the poor quality, and we were able to address that problem. And I think we're going to see these problems occur again in the future. And in fact, that experience is very helpful for us in providing mentoring to the venture companies. Thank you very much. And you're also acknowledging the efforts of your employees, which is very good. Again, a warm applause for the CEO of iSense, Nam Hak-hyun, for an excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are listening to case presentations on global competency enhancement. We will go on to the second example by Seconix, entitled AI and Vision, Fourth Industrial industry's input-output solution. And the speaker is Park Eun-kyung, CEO of Seconics. Please welcome her with a warm hand. Good afternoon. I am Park Eun-kyung of Seconics. I will begin with my case presentation. Optics is a field of physics researching on the characteristics of light. So Seconics produces optical products, optical components based on this technology. So first is we have input systems developed, camera lens for smartphones, camera lens for autos, and other equipments. And on the other hand, we have vision, the output system, something that is visible. We have amp modules for cars and optical films for televisions, for example. With regards to our vision products, well, in the new fourth industrial revolution era, we are making new preparations, and the end product market is growing, and Seconics is developing its globalization strategy. So let me talk about that. Seconics began with a small pickup lens in 1980s, and the plastic lens, we were established to produce plastic lenses for the photography rooms. And then we were able to go into the PC camera lens market. And with the growth of the cell phone market in Korea, in 2005, we began to go into the car lens market. Right now, we have 48% market share, overseas market share 5%. For smartphone lens camera, domestically 18% and globally 7% market share. So we are fourth in the global market, in the optics market, and we have 4 factories in the country and 3 factories overseas. And in 2019, we reached 400 billion won in sales. So we became an MME then. Samsung, LG, Hyundai, along with these major companies, we have moved overseas to Poland, to Vietnam, and other countries. But we also feel the need to go into new markets overseas at this point. Something that you are interested in would be autonomous driving, and camera technology is a basic element in AD. And this means a lot of changes in camera technologies. Cameras previously was used for people to view and see. However, cameras in the future is a camera that AIs will be viewing. And AI cameras are called sensing cameras. And in the automobile market, we are transitioning to viewing to sensing market. For sensing camera, the software algorithm should be developed also. So you have a vertical structure. The global sensing solution market leader is Mobileye, and lens image sensing are recommending designated supplier relationships. And so it is leading to very fixated structures. And so we need to understand that characteristics in the GVC. And what we thought was most important in sales is that we need to be an early mover in new markets. And this strategy first began with collaborating with ON Semiconductor Corporation and also developing the reference camera market along with NVIDIA. For image sensors, with sensors alone, it's difficult to verify the functions. And NVIDIA, to complete its autonomous driving algorithm, they needed an optimized camera. And so on semiconductors, image sensor and Seconics' technology was combined, and we were able to provide the optimized camera for NVIDIA. And This was helpful for deep learning implementation for NVIDIA. So we were selected as a partner company of NVIDIA. And based on this collaboration, Seconics was able to understand the AD-based camera needs and were able to secure that needed technology. And new GVC was formed as a result. A lot of AD application products are now being developed by us. And there is an even stronger market for us. With Texas Instruments in the US, the BMD panel, they are a leader in BMD panel. So this system market has great potential for us. So the video light is used to explode the videos. And so there are a lot of different modules and products that we are developing. And so the light is used to project the images, video images, and Seconics camera is used to this. Based on this technology, we are trying to launch into the beam projector market. And with TI, we were able to establish a collaboration relationship. And for TI, there was a needs for product verification, and also they wanted to expand their market share also. And so it was a very specialized companies, but there was high burden of initial investments. And so with this background, we established a technology collaboration system, and USA technology and vehicle module development were some of the areas where we focused on for collaboration because the market was expanding. So we did initial collaboration, we did demonstrations together, and in the CES, we are doing the CES booth promotions together every year. And these models developed will be used in 3D head-up display and car communication display, car window displays, and AR modules. There are still some prior art technology and components, but because of the expansion of the infotainment system and autonomous driving expansions, to prepare for this new market, we are trying to secure future technologies. And also in the contactless era, the AR VR products market is expanding as well, which connects reality with the virtual world. And the AI products that we are developing provides information and convenience offer is also important in order to form new markets. And based on this collaboration, optics-based technology evaluation will be realized, and we will promote our new products together. And that's what we have been doing for the past 8 years. And we used optics technology, and we were able to become an MMEs through by participating in the government projects. In the early 2000s, the Ministry of Industry had conducted a components materials technology development projects. And so we participated in the project. Seconics succeeded in localization with TLC, Samsung, and Hyundai. We were able to supply to these major companies. And in 2003 and 2007, through these 2 rounds of projects, we were able to go into optics film, technology development, and other technologies. With these base technologies, with major companies in Korea, we were able to grow together. And based on this outcome, and we are trying to develop our technology, and we were able to go into the GVC as a result. And many of these suppliers have grown along with the major companies as suppliers. Although the revenue has grown, independent technology development or becoming a first mover in a new market, we lacked that capacity. So we need more investments, support from the public sector, more collaboration with the industry to ensure that these MMEs, which form the pillar of the economy, will be able to grow further and become major companies. In the fourth industrial revolution era, a lot of vision recognition technologies will go into cars and also robots and also factory automation. And in 80 also, the cameras that go into the 80s, the technology requirements will go up. And camera recognized data should be displayed very naturally through such technology and component development. So looking at this huge market, potential market in the future, we should utilize new technology development and collaboration with other companies as our foothold for continuous progress. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Through various examples, you were able to talk about the importance of collaborating with the other MMEs. Again, we received a prior question, and here it is. There is a distance between the autonomous driving and the camera module. So how did you first come to contact NVIDIA? Well, it's difficult to say that they are two different businesses. Through Hyundai Motors, we were already producing car cameras, but from viewing, we were changing to shifting. Of course, the structure is different, but then the functions, specifications, I think we were delayed a little bit on those aspects. As I did mention earlier, for semiconductors, in the camera market, they were #1. So they had a lot of specification and data available, but semiconductor is our supplier. So with our supplier, well, the lens, we were searching for companies that could have that technology, and they were searching for a potential supplier and contacted Seconics, and so we optimized the references so that we could prioritize reducing market entry barriers as we tried to work with NVIDIA. There were a lot of things that we had to do, based on which we were able to approach NVIDIA eventually. NVIDIA right now, whether it'll be tier 1 or it will go on to software positioning, I think that it's still a matter that we have to wait and see. But anyhow, when there was that opportunity, we were able to make Seconics be a known company in the world, and we will be able to expand our sales skills even further. So we simply used or created and used that opportunity as they arise. Thank you very much to Park Eun-kyun, the CEO of Seconics. A warm applause once again, please.
Thank you very much. That was Park Eun-kyun of Seconics. Thank you for sharing your experience and know-how with us. We will now continue to the third case study. It is titled From 3D Inspection to Medical Robot, Creating New Opportunities. We have with us Head of Corporate Planning, Mr. Park Hyun-soo of Koyoung Technology. Please welcome the speaker with a big round of applause.
안녕하십니까?
Good afternoon. I would like to take this opportunity to present Koyoung Technology. My name is Park Hyun-soo. Whenever we introduce our company, we usually introduce what's favorable about our company, and it's usually what the audience wants to hear. But for this presentation, I would like to take a look at why Koyoung is striving to move into new businesses and why we are moving into the medical robot business. And I would also like to share with you some processes in making our medical robot business successful. Due to the time constraint, I will skip over our company introduction, but I would like to mention that Koyoung Technology has about half of our employees working in R&D. And we are also investing more than 10% in 10% of our revenues in R&D. So we are a technology-based company. Our main products are the 3D measurement-based optical inspection solutions for electronics assembly processes such as semiconductors. So this is our main product. Concerning this main product, let me briefly introduce it to you, because this also includes our growth strategy as well as the criteria for selecting the new business. We have 3D measurement-based optical inspection solution, which is a first in the world, and we had some core principles. First, we wanted to make sure that rather than having product planning at the company or R&D, we wanted to find problems and issues that are being experienced by our customers. And so that is why we introduced the outside-in thinking. So we started from the needs of our customers. And second, one of the reasons why we could not come up with the right product is because there are no solutions. And we wanted to make sure that we create a world-first technology to satisfy the needs of our customers. We wanted to take a look at how we can differentiate ourselves. And by combining the two approaches, we were able to come up with a 3D measurement-based optical inspection solutions for the first time in the world. And not only on the technology side, we wanted to create stable revenues by diversifying our markets. And as a result, we were able to diversify our revenues by region and also by industry. And as a result, for SPI, which is using solder, we were able to achieve number one in terms of market share, which is 52%. Since 2006, we have been number one. And the AOI market share stands at 30%, which is number one in the market, and we have been maintaining the number one position for 4 years for AOI and number one since 2006 for SPI. So we have continued rapid growth, and in that process, we went through challenges that are faced by not only us, but by other companies as well. In this industrial market, we are inevitably faced by cyclical changes and volatility, such as G2 trade war, COVID-19, and the global financial crisis are some of the crises that we experienced. But at the same time, cyclical changes always gives us difficulties. And there's also the limitation of the growth of the product itself. For example, for SPI, when we achieved our target market share of 50%, we could no longer increase our revenues or further grow our product unless this whole market grows. And we believe that AOI will achieve 50% in the near future. And when we achieve 50%, we will need a new growth engine. Another challenge is the external factors, especially changes in the global value chain. China was the global factory, and other global factories, including China, are increasing their cost. We see COVID-19, also the G2 trade war. And because of these external factors, many of the customers in the manufacturing industry are looking to move their manufacturing hubs. And accordingly, when the manufacturing hub changes, then competitive edges will also change. That is why we need to have a strategy that reflects these changes. And we also need to make sure that we seek higher added value businesses. In order to overcome these challenges, Koyoung Technology has selected pursuing new businesses amongst various strategies to overcome the challenges. So let me talk about how we pursue new businesses. Koyoung Technology, when pursuing new businesses, has several principles, but let me introduce two of them to you. First, when we pursue new businesses, we always base it on core technologies because although it could help our revenues in the near future, if we move into a field that will not provide us with a differentiation point, then the additional margins will disappear very quickly. The second principle is that we consider whether the new business is related to any social controversies or whether it will satisfy the needs of our industrial partners. Well, if it causes social controversies or if it doesn't satisfy the needs of our industrial partners, then it means that the business will not be worthwhile. And so we believe that it has to satisfy the needs of industrial partners for the new business to have high potential. Based on these principles, the new businesses that we selected are three. Here you can see that on the left we have new inspection equipment that is expanding the 3D inspection solutions for other industries as well. That's one of our growth strategy. On the right is smart factory, and in the middle we have medical business. And I would like to go into the details of these strategies in the following slides. For smart factory, we believe that because our 3D measurement-based solutions act as a sensor in the factory, our inspection solutions measure how well the products have been made, and so we actually become the sensor for the smart factory. Data can be collected, and by developing software, the clients can monitor the processes in real time and use that to optimize their processes as an AI-based solution. One of the key words is collaboration and cooperation, and it's true for our smart factory as well. Because if we look into the factory of our clients, it would be best if we could use purely Koyoung technology devices, but we also have to collaborate with other factories and equipment. And for smart factory, we need communication between devices, and that is why Koyoung Technology created alliances and cooperation in this field. And by doing so, we were able to lead and provide the most advanced type of smart factory solutions. The next area that we were interested in is the medical sector. Koyoung Technology has a medical robot business. When you picture robots for medicine, you may think, is it related to your 3D measurement-based inspection solutions? You may think it's a completely different sector. That's quite true. In the beginning, we were reluctant to move into medical robots. We thought, since we are not knowledgeable about medical robots, would this be a good fit for our company? Well, we looked into the technology that went into medical robots, and we realized that the core technologies that we have were the core technologies for medical robots. And so we believe that it was quite feasible. But the government and the Ministry of Technology, Industry, and Energy provided us with full-fledged support, and that's the only way we could move into the medical robot market. And we had the vision of expanding the medical welfare for the public, and that was also supported by doctors. So the government actually played the role of a stepping stone, and they actually connected us with hospitals, so we were able to work in the medical robot business. And if we take a look at some roles within this alliance, the products were not developed by Koyoung Technology alone. We actually heard from our doctors, and they actually provided the product planning. The government supported us with ideas and technology, and what Koyoung did was to bring together product plans and technology to create the actual product. And so you can see that this alliance and cooperation model indeed enabled us to succeed in the medical robot market, and we were actually able to come up with this successful result. Koyoung Technology, in conducting medical robot business, introduced our strategy for differentiation. Intuitive Surgical is an American company well known for surgical robots, and if we were to directly compete against them, we would not be able to compete. And so we looked for areas where we could compete, and we believed that brain and neurosurgeries was the area where we could utilize our 3D sensing and robotics technologies. And so I would like to elaborate on this, but due to the time constraint, we will have to go on. Even if there was good alliance and cooperation, medical robot business was not a smooth sail. As you can see here, from 2011, we started our R&D and market research. We went through certification, and in 2020, we did our first delivery. So it took more than 10 years. And what we need to take note of is that because we were in industrial purpose inspection solutions, everything was new to us. For example, risk management certification, software validation, DMP, production certification, all of that was very new to us, and we did not know how to conduct these procedures. And we could boil that down to three keywords. First, we needed huge investments. Second, we needed domain knowledge. We needed domain knowledge about the medical business. And third, we needed a management system. And in order to overcome this, for example, huge investments were made by our management, the government support, and the will of the doctors. For domain knowledge, we were able to solve that by hiring talent and studying these issues. There were no experts related to these processes, so we actually had to hire talent of specific fields and bring that knowledge together. We also had to work with the government organization that fully supported our initial certification process. And last but not least, all of the processes were different for medical purposes and industrial purposes, and so we had to learn about regulations and the subsequent administration, and we had to learn completely new R&D and production processes. And in order to move into the global market, we also had to have a global system of standard management by introducing the ERP system. It took over 10 years to maintain all of this, and that is why we were now able to create a foundation for our medical business. Based on these growth strategies, what are some of our plans? First, for our smart factory solutions, we would like to advance our solutions and expand the areas for applications and continue to further develop our 3D measurement inspection system. And for our neurology robot, we would like to build our track record in Korea so that we could target global medical markets, including the US and China. That would be the plan for our medical robot business. We would also like to expand our medical robot applications to spinal surgeries along with neurosurgeries. And last but not least, in order to continue to upgrade our technology, we would also like to continue to participate in the Korea-German Technology Cooperation Center, where we are already participating to further upgrade our technology. So, thus far, I have talked about why we have moved into the medical industry. And let me try and summarize my presentation. When we plan our product, we should have an outside-in thinking strategy. We need to continue to think about differentiation. Koyoung Technology was able to maintain our number one position for SPI products for 14 years, and that's because of our differentiation. We made huge investments into the medical industry, but if that impacted our core business, then it would have been very difficult to continue to invest in the new business. Fourth, we talk about the G2 trade war and COVID-19 impacting the changes of the global value chain. You need to be able to read these trends quickly and respond preemptively so that you can turn threats into opportunities. And last but not least, in pursuing new businesses, you need to seek a model of alliance and cooperation. It's very difficult to succeed alone, especially for MMEs and SMEs. We have the lack of resources and experience, and so the model of alliance and cooperation is absolutely necessary. So that is the summary of my presentation. That is all for my presentation today. I shared with you why Koyoung actually moved into the medical business and what kind of strategy that we had in creating our successful results. I hope the presentation was helpful to you in the audience. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you talked about differentiation. There is a question about differentiation. It is said that providing necessary solutions for smart factories is one of your strategies. What are some differentiations by Koyoung Technology? I hope that our competitors are not asking this question. It's actually related to our business secret. Koyoung Technology, when we work with smart factories, there are many points of differentiation. One of the core differentiation point is our 3D inspection and measurement data. Most inspection solutions actually take pictures and they don't do 3D measurements. So they would not have 3D measurement data. But at smart factories, I believe what is the most important is smart factory automation plus intelligence. You can use robot arms to do automation, but you need to add intelligence to make sure that optimization can happen in real time automatically without manual intervention by making it intelligent, and that will be based on measurement data. And we are the only ones that has 3D measurement data in this industry, and we can use that data to pinpoint where the problems are. For example, is it off by 50 millimeters to the right or to the left? And so we have that golden data, and I believe that that is our biggest differentiator in working with smart factories. Thank you very much. Thank you for passionately sharing your information with us. Another big round of applause, please. So we have heard from Mr. Park from Koyoung Technology. We have been here for quite a long afternoon, and we will now go on to the last presentation. It is titled Expanding the European Market Based on Quality and Market Competitiveness. This presentation will be made by Director Young Seung-chul of Callip and Company on behalf of SHPAC. Pleased to meet you. I am the last presenter of the day. As have been introduced, I will be presenting on our consulting project related to expanding the European market based on quality and cost competitiveness. SHPAC in 2016 asked us to conduct a consulting project for the overseas market. I would like to briefly introduce SHPAC as well as their results in overseas markets, followed by what they need to do in order to expand their overseas market presence. SHPAC sells heavy construction equipment, and they specialize in hydraulic systems. So their vision is to become one of the top 5 global hydraulic system providers. They produce hydraulic cylinders for heavy construction equipment. They work with major brands such as Hyundai, Caterpillar, and other global brands. In 2009, they established their company in the US, and they have expanded their offices to China and Japan, and most recently in Europe. In the beginning, in the 70s, they started as an automotive parts provider, and during the late 80s, they started to provide hydraulic cylinders for exports, and they became an expert in hydraulic cylinders thanks to their R&D and product improvements. Up until 2000, they have worked with various customers within the Korean market. Especially in 2006, they have become recognized as an expert hydraulic cylinder company, and they established their own entity for the hydraulic cylinders. And ever since 2009 and 2010, they have experienced a 20% increase in exports, and they actually achieved 200 billion in sales last year. In achieving such a growth, what were the most important aspects in terms of product portfolio? They could diversify the parts that they provide for construction equipment, or they could specialize in hydraulic cylinders. SH Pack decided to specialize in hydraulic cylinders, and they strengthened their relations with their customers, and they actually expanded the application of their hydraulic cylinders from simple forklifts to other construction equipment, including tower wagons. In 2019, 2/3 of their revenues came from tower wagons, and so they are actually moving up the ladder of high added value. In terms of international markets, the major tower wagon markets are the US, Japan, and China. In terms of market size, growth potential, US was the most attractive market for SH Pack. And so in order to move into the US market, they concentrated their core competencies, and as a result, you can see that 60% of their revenues are from the US, and in 2006, less than 30% of their revenues were from exports, but now that has grown to close to 60%. Ever since 2010, they have grown, but they are concentrated in several markets, and sometimes they are not able to respond properly to various markets. For Europe and Japan, their market revenues have actually decreased since their early days in Japan and Europe. And so therefore, if we take a look at the hydraulic cylinder market around the world, just like any other manufacturing industry, we see that the smart factories are being introduced, and we also see the introduction of IoT in this area as well. And along with making things green, there is a higher demand for high efficiency hydraulic cylinders. From the global market perspective, ever since COVID-19, most market forecasting companies believe that there will be expanded investments into construction, and so many forecast that there is a positive outlook for construction equipment. But by markets, we can see that their supply chain is becoming tighter within the country, and the requirements for different standards and technologies is becoming stricter for most regions. And so we need to keep that in mind. In the case of the US market, in the beginning, they mostly competed against local American companies based on cost competitiveness, and they continued communication and quality improvements. And as we have already introduced, they are suppliers to major tower wagon companies in the US. But because of COVID-19 and other elements such as the G2 trade war, at this point in time, the major competitors are the Chinese competitors. And so rather than competing based on cost, we need to focus on stable supply. And we already see that many of our customers are looking to expand production next year and onwards. So we need to be able to monitor their demands accurately to make sure that we have stable supplies provided to the customers. And for the US market, they are looking for higher and higher technology. And along with the hydraulic cylinders for tower wagons, we also need to look at other possible applications so that we can strengthen our existence in the American market. As for the Japanese market, currently the contribution is not high, but it is continuing to grow. But as you're well aware, the Japanese market, they always strive to work through long-term partnership, and they like to build partnership by having face-to-face meetings. So for example, we will contact them from the designing stage, and for Japan, we need to have a long-term perspective rather than looking for short-term results. For example, participate in the development stage of high performance products so that in the long run we can participate in supplying those high performance parts. The US market is the largest in size, but you can see that the European market also takes up about 30% of the market. If we take a look at the overall global market, we are concentrated on the American market. And so we have about a 20% market share overall, but that percentage is not coming from Europe at all. For the European market, the current size is quite significant. We believe that their presence in this industry will continue to grow into the future because of the forecasted SOC investments after COVID-19. So we believe that the market will grow to a very attractive figure. But for the European market, the criteria and regulations are very stringent compared to the American market, especially related to being eco-friendly. And in Germany, they have movements to use IoT for hydraulic cylinders. And so we can see that higher performance hydraulic cylinders are required for the European market. If we take a look at the market structure analysis, we believe that Europe has the potential to grow, and major manufacturers have started to outsource their hydraulic cylinders, so the opportunity is definitely there. But because of regulations and standardization, as well as the presence of Chinese and Indian market players in Europe, it is a very difficult market to conquer. The European market, compared to other markets, has quite diverse players. And because of that, the negotiation power of major buyers exists. At the same time, there are also competitive markets in the niche market, and there are also companies with technologies that have great opportunities in this market. So bargaining power comes from technology and differentiation. From the perspective of SHPAC, thus far, in order to move into the European market, they have tried to work with companies that they have already built partnerships with. But given the unique characteristics of the European market, working through partners from outside of Europe was not applicable. And because the low-end market is already dominated by the Chinese market, it's difficult to make inroads into this market. But because there is more need for high-tech products, we can consider collaboration with local technology-based companies. Collaboration with major brands is something that we need to work on as well, but we need to also work with technology-based companies that have a niche market in Europe, and we should consider JVs or M&As so that we can work on the regulations and standardizations in Europe, as well as discovering the needs of the European consumers. If we take a look at Indian or Chinese companies with a presence in Europe, Chinese companies have worked on acquiring local companies so that they can work on new technologies and new clients through the acquired company. Wipro of India, they already had a network in Europe outside of hydraulic cylinders, and so they have actually expanded that network to hydraulic cylinders. For SHPAC, they have started to work with the European market since last year, but there is a very big limitation in acquiring information about M&As or JV opportunities. So we look forward to the government providing that information. And SHPAC does not have a high brand visibility in Europe. And so maybe guarantees and certifications could be provided by the government of Korea so that SHPAC could find the motivation to move into the European market. Last but not least, concerning the American market, there are some mid to long-term strategies. But if we take a look at the post-COVID-19 era, because America is a major market for SHPAC, thus far we have worked on building customer relations based on quality improvement. And recently, SHPAC was selected as the best partner for the #1 tower wagon company in the US. But in order for us to take the next leap forward, we need to move away from simply competing based on cost with Chinese companies, but rather making sure that we have a stable supply of our products to the US companies. Perhaps actively sharing information on a digital basis from the development stage. And so we need to start building relations from early on in the product pipeline. For the case of Europe, it's very difficult to move into the European market compared to other markets because they have stringent standardizations and regulations. So we need to look for local companies with good technology so that we can collaborate or consider M&As. So we are currently looking into the outsourcing needs of tower wagon companies in Europe so that we can have a footing in the European market. Recently, ever since 2010, SHPAC has grown its exports, and In the future, we look forward to the next leap forward in both the American market and the European market. We look forward to the government support to enable this goal. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure that many of you listening to the presentation also wish to move into the European market. Is it necessary to conduct localization of manufacturing facilities to enter the European market? When do you believe that this will be necessary? At the current stage, if you wish to make inroads into the European market, I think collaboration with a technology-based company should be a first. Localization of manufacturing will be further into the future, whether it be the US or Europe. When you do localization of the manufacturing facility alone is not a good idea. So in the long run, you need to also localize R&D along with manufacturing. Well, first we want to move into the European market, and we also wish to conduct localization in India so that we can actually combine the localization of R&D and manufacturing connecting Europe and India. Thank you for your answers. Thank you once again to Director Yoon for his presentation.
네, 여러분 어떻게 보셨?
So we've listened to 4 case presentations on global competency enhancement. And for MMEs who hope to go overseas, and for other startups and SMEs, I'm sure that the presentations have much takeaway and lessons for you to learn. So by listening to the case presentations on global competency enhancement, we hope that we've contributed to your future growth. And it's time for us for this international conference to end. Once again, thank you to all our online and offline participants. As we mentioned earlier, you can use the QR code and YouTube link to participate in our survey. And if you send in the survey, we will draw lots to give away prizes. And if you are here on the floor, you can use the paper survey and turn in the survey at the registration desk to participate in the prize giveaway. The video of this international conference on MME's innovation will be uploaded on the MME 2020 live channel as well as our website. So please refer to the videos when needed. So this is the end of the international conference on MME's innovation. This has been announcer Moon Sori. Thank you very much.